Good morning. How's it going?
Morning.
Happy Saturday.
How are you?
Good. Just got back from camping, fathers and sons outing
Oh, where'd you go?
up in Enterprise.
Hmm. How was
Nice and
it? Did it
cool.
rain?
A little bit on the way up, but not much, just a little scattered.
Oh, good. Last night, I did a presentation here last night, and it was raining like crazy on my way
Oh,
over there.
really?
Yeah,
No, we missed it. Just for only a
that's
few seconds
good.
while we were driving, so it was nice. Had a nice fire.
That's fun. It's fun to have an excuse to do that, isn't it?
Yeah. All right, you guys. Throw in the chat where you're checking in from.
How was that concert Saturday night?
What's that?
How was that Garth Brooks concert?
Oh, he is so good.
I
Man,
know
that was an awesome concert.
yeah, he's a good performer. He
Yeah,
knows how to do it.
he's a great performer, and I think he's 61. 61 seems like the new 30.
No kidding. It gets younger all the time, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah, it does. But yeah, he was really good. Trisha Yearwood, his wife, came out. She forgot part of her song. She couldn't remember it for the life of her, and she held the microphone down to the audience, and they started singing it. And she's like, "Okay, thanks." Just
That's
goes to
good.
show,
That's pretty funny.
But yeah, it was good. All right, we'll get started here in a couple more minutes.
Try.
Loving the comments in the Facebook group and the awareness that people are getting. It's awesome.
Yeah, it really seems that people are getting their brains wrapped around it, which is cool.
Yeah. There's a sense of peace that comes along with that understanding rather than confusion and feeling less than, I guess.
I
Yeah.
find myself um all my friends that I know, people that I know, I'm now I'm sitting there going, C R
Yeah.
O. Yeah, easy now.
I get confused between the E and the R, I think, because I'm so
Yeah,
much of those, and I tend to
Wow.
lean more towards I'm an R, but then when I say, oh, that's an R, there's probably a E that I'm pointing out because I just feel familiar with it.
they are so close. I mean, I'm a E. I'm 50% E, and about I think 37 or something like that percent R,
Yeah.
and
I tell the difference.
I got no O, nothing. But I love to have fun.
Right. And that's, yeah. And that's
Yeah, right?
actually, that's an important thing. I mean, it's not like O's have the corner market on fun.
Yes.
It's just why we do it. Right. It's what motivates, motivates the things that we do. And when you are a lot of both, it is hard to differentiate, is that, why am I doing that? And it just, then you'll start getting better and better at it.
Yeah, that's the more familiar we are with it. And it's fun because we have this community where we're working with other people pretty closely. So you get it from more than just a personal perspective of studying it. You're talking
Yeah.
about it with other people and how they are acting. And then you're just like, what are you again? Oh, okay, that's right. And
Right.
it starts to sink in. Love it. Carrie, so I don't know if there's any housekeeping items we need to go over. I think everything's going pretty smoothly in the Facebook group and
The only thing that I would say is if I uploaded a workbook and some of you saw it, but I'm going to edit it and re-upload it. Well, Dr. Slade is making some edits, and then I will re-upload version 2 of the workbook, just so you know, if you were one that has already seen it, it's good, but it's going to be better. So anyways.
It's really good. It's really good.
Yeah.
I'm just tweaking a few little words here and there.
Yeah, which makes it better. So we are, And then if you know anybody who's not in the Facebook group yet, encourage them to be, because that's where we store these recorded calls. The calls are recorded and stored only in the Facebook group, nowhere else. So, and I will pin them as featured at the top. And that's all I have.
Okay, good. Okay, I'm gonna mute this out. You guys throw in the chat where you're checking in from. Always love to see that. Yeah, so I think we're ready to go, Dr. Slade. Appreciate you and all you're doing and taking the time. And it's definitely what I had hoped it would be and more. And it's exciting. So without any further delay, we'll just toss it over to you.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm excited to talk about things we're going to talk about today. I tried to drill down into a little bit more of specific things that that will be particularly applicable to your teams and the work that you're doing in Isagenics, and kind of bridge the gap there. And
Can I just set that up a little bit? I'm sorry. Right?
totally.
For people that are, I think pretty much everybody that I see is in Isagenics, but I know that there were people who are reaching out to family and friends and coworkers and things like that. So there may be some people that are not in the company Isagenics. If you're not, you ought to be. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not, but
Right.
anyway,
Not kidding.
but it's applicable across the board, right? What we're applying here, because networking is such a people person type of thing, it flows into our personal lives as well. So this information we knew would be universal, but specifically geared towards the challenges and hurdles and being blindsided and starting your own business and knowing how to overcome those challenges. And on the inside, where it all starts is such a big part of creating success and having it be what you wanted it to be, why you joined, and all of the different dynamics of that. And even though there's very specific things that have to be addressed a certain way, we can, the road leads from many different directions to that same way that needs to be accomplished. And so we really do want to get into the specifics of some of the dynamics of network marketing, and especially Isagenics, and what might be holding us back because of what we're processing inside. So with that, thanks for letting me share that, and go ahead and jump in now. Let's see. I think he froze up. Where'd he go?
It said he left, so he probably did freeze and he's coming back in. So I'll add to that what you're saying, Dave, because it's so true. The principles that we're learning here are our principles, and they can be applied to every area of life. And so if we're talking about something business related, if you're in Isagenics or not, it's also applicable to your family relationships, to your friendships, to everything you do in life. And our lives go better when our relationships are going well. And this is a relationships business. So just to summarize, I guess, what you just said. Do you see him back on yet?
No, I'm looking. I don't see him yet.
Okay.
If anybody sees him, I'll look at the participants too, see if it comes in alphabetically. Yeah, and things like that hold people back. Oh, there you are. The recruiting process, the rank advancing. If we're on the unhealthy side of our temperaments, it could paralyze. Well, it does paralyze us, and that's the bigger reason for this. Zoom, which is going to be so many added benefits as we address those. Okay, Dr. Slade, you there?
Computer just died. I'm sorry. That was
really. I was wondering. Yeah, he had great signal. I was thinking he couldn't have lost signal. He's had such.
No, that was really weird. It kind of scared me a little bit because it started kind of acting. My screen kind of went fuzzy, and then it died. So
no.
Hopefully
All
it
right.
wasn't.
Floor's yours.
Okay, let me.
And I don't know if you caught what I said, just more about the dynamics of network marketing. Did you catch that before?
I didn't. I lost you.
So just, when it comes to the dynamics of network marketing and the specifics, recruiting, rank advancing, earning income, following up, leadership, if we're on the unhealthy side of our temperament, and it's like paradigms. It's not that anybody does it on purpose. We all have an unhealthy side. And so, first of all, admitting that and taking responsibility, and first admitting that, there's room for improvement. That's where we could really start off, making the improvements. But just our temperaments on the unhealthy side will paralyze us in this business because there's
Totally.
some very critical things that you have to do in a certain way. And when you can tap into who you are authentically and still accomplish those things at the same time in your own way, then we start to move forward, and it can be what we wanted it to be and why we got started in the first place. So,
Exactly. Can you guys see my screen?
yeah.
Okay, good. Um, yeah, and these things, like Dave was saying too, I mean, they apply to everything in our lives because our temperament and our personality filters everything that we do and say. You cannot partial out who you are, and say, well, it's not going to affect this aspect of my life. It is literally like a pair of, it's our eyes, and you can't take your eyes out. And so it's really important that we be able to do it. My screen says that my screen sharing is paused. Is that, what do you guys see?
No, I see the engage, and there's a red highlight around. There's
We see the all of the files, not the actual slide.
Oh, okay, so it's not working.
Maybe just stop it, redo it.
Okay. All right. How about that?
Yep, there you go.
Okay. Did that change?
The definition of success.
Yeah.
Differs.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we're going to talk about two really important things today. I think they're really important in our lives and businesses, and that is what success looks like, and how to motivate and work with the different temperament types. And so I hope you have a piece of paper or something. I'll have you writing stuff down today, and then also contributing some things into the chat as well. So what does define success? I'd like you to take just a minute, and in your mind, what does success look like? And if you will, share in the chat what your primary temperament type is, or your primary and secondary, and what you said success was. Moving towards a worthy ideal. That's really very RE both, Dave. That's a good example. Making a goal and reaching it, or feeling happy in the moment. I know art, yeah. Yeah, completing the task I set forth for myself. Star Millionaire. Setting goals and achieving them.
Just so people know, Malcolm has my logo by his name, so where it may say my name, that's
Yeah.
Malcolm R, 8-star millionaire. I don't know if you could change your name, Malcolm.
Letting myself do something I want to do, but I'm afraid to do until I feel comfortable and confident doing it. And Carrie, what are you? CO, completing something that shows results. Contributing to others. RO, financial freedom. Time helping others to have the same lifestyle. Bonnie, what is your primary temperament type? Okay. Clear past notice. Okay, good. That's great. Really great examples. So success, hold on a second. Let me, shoot. It's like my computer's acting really weird. I had to restart my PowerPoint. Hold on.
Once I get inside, if it keeps acting up, I could share it from my screen and then you could talk if we need to do that.
Okay.
I probably won't, but just in case.
See here. Okay, I think it's going here. Can you still see my screen?
Not yet. You may need to share the screen again. It unshared.
Okay.
There you go.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay. Okay.
See JoJo's e-response. I'm not sure there ever is really success, is what JoJo said.
Jojo, that's perfect. That's a perfect e-response. Can you ever get there? Okay, so what defines success for a C? Hold on a second here again. These are some of the things that define success for a C. Helping, blessing the lives of others, helping others feel good, feel good physically, emotionally, financially, etc. They want to feel good in these areas and they want to help other people feel good in those areas. Those are going to be the kinds of markers of success that are going to naturally show up for a C. Helping others feel seen and understood. Being able to connect with someone. When a C is able to have a really good, deep talk where both people feel seen and valued, that's a huge marker of success for a C. Someone recognizing their value. Remember, one of the defining characteristics of the C is this deep desire to feel seen and understood. And it's really hard for a C to demand that and to take the risks in order to receive that. And so when they receive a message that somebody really values them and what they bring to the table, that's a home run for the C. Community, a place to belong, going to be a huge marker of success for a C. What defines success for an O? Helping others feel good, have a good time. Having a good time, making something fun and enjoyable for others and for themselves. Creating freedom and the ability to be adventurous, to do things that they want to do in their lives. Recognition, trips and fun incentives, going to be big markers of success for an O. Friends, people they hang out with. An enjoyable community is a huge marker of success for O's. Success for an R, being able to find and create solutions. Movement, helping others move toward their goals. Being able to see things march forward is extremely satisfying for the R brain. Reaching goals, money, status, recognition, buying things or doing things or going places that they want to go. Any sort of marker that is like a tangible thing that that they've been successful really feeds the R brain. Checking off milestones. I think it was Malcolm, Dave, that said number 8 million or 8-star millionaire. I'm not sure exactly what that means, but that's a milestone, right? That's like, man, that's going to be a great marker of success for his R brain. What's next? Really important for the R brain that there be a goal, that there be an objective. It's really kind of disorganizing for the R brain to get to the top of the summit and not have another summit to climb. It's the R needs an objective, needs a target. That's because that's what the R brain is good at, right? It's that movement and it's going forward. And if you walk into some place and there's no place to go, it's a little discombobulating for the R. Success for an E. Making things and people better. Sharing knowledge and understanding. Remember, the core process for the E brain, and you've heard me say this several times now, when the E brain is thinking, it's thinking about how to make something better. And so it doesn't matter what it's making better, as long as it's able to make improvement and feel like it's moving things forward, that's success for the E brain. Creating fairness and justice. E's are big on fairness and justice. Pinnacle leadership. Creating the perfect processes for others to follow. First for themselves and then for others. Those are key markers of success for the E brain. Okay, what does success look like in Isagenics? Connecting, following up, organizing, scheduling, leading, developing leaders, recognizing. Right? That's the building your team tree. So how do we start to merge what success looks like for each temperament type, and what is necessary in order to be successful in Isagenics? Let's look a little bit about Isagenics skills, although they're certainly not limited to Isagenics, but skills by temperament. These are things that that each of the temperament types naturally do well. But let's break this down a little bit more. Connecting, talking to X number of people, new people a day, communicating the message and the scripts, piquing interest, asking the right questions, listening for their needs and solutions, helping people see what's available, drip, not overwhelm, being okay with no and rejection. Those are all elements of connecting that are important skills in Isagenics. Following up, ask leading questions, initiating the next step, creating movement versus waiting, resolving concerns, collecting referrals, managing expectations, educating on what's available and how it can benefit them. Organization, keeping track of leads and connections, managing time, creating a sense of community, engaging with the team, recognition, talking about the business and money can be really difficult for some temperament types. Three-way calls, inviting and doing three-way calls, helping people see what's available. Again, drip, not overwhelm. Leadership, sharing website, vision casting, inspiring hope, presenting, training, inviting, welcoming, helping them through the step-by-step process, presenting, training, inviting, welcoming, helping them through this. Oh, we got that on there twice. Sorry. Teaching comp plan, three-way calls, focusing on keeping it simple. And the main thing. So those all familiar, right? Okay, so let's look at C skills as they relate to this. C's are really great at creating community, connecting and listening, showing genuine interest, including and accommodating. These are all things that if a C, especially if a C is healthy, the C is naturally going to be able to do this uniquely well. Again, can the rest of us develop skills to do this? Okay, yeah, but these are things that the C will do naturally, on average, better than the rest of us. Supporting, welcoming, communicating, especially communicating about emotional details, recognizing what's going on, being willing to dip into what somebody's feeling. What's in it for, this is what's in it for me, right? But what's in it for them? Helping other people see what's in it for them. Follow up, initiating the next step, resolving concerns, collecting referrals, engaging with the team, paying attention to those who are struggling. Those are all great C skills that naturally are part of the C temperament. What are O's? What skills do O's naturally bring to the table? Recruiting, really good at laying out the big picture of things. Connecting and rallying the troops. Talking to new people. Sharing possibilities. Piquing and keeping interest. Showing genuine interest. Both C's and O's have a tremendous amount of innate interest in people and what's going on in their lives. In fact, they can, both C's and O's can get lost in the talking and in the connecting. Collecting referrals, inspiring hope, engaging, planning with the team. O's love to plan, they love to brainstorm. Recognition. O's praise really easily and well. Keeping it simple. The O brain is a simple place. Asking questions, sharing the dream. I want to talk about something here between the C and the O and the R and the E, and that's the concept of psychological error. Because if you're an R or an E, the emotional side of things sometimes can feel like it gets in the way of movement. It gets in the way of
Dr. Slade, can
yeah.
you just go back to that slide real quick? I think people want to get a screenshot of it. They didn't know
Yes.
that was going to be the last one. Yeah, just okay. We'll give you a count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, thanks.
And I can leave that there for a second. Psychological error for if you're an E or an R, you might feel like the fluffy side of things, the relating, the emotional stuff that people are going through, the struggles that people are going through can feel like just noise and things that are in the way of being successful and moving forward. And there's a really important thing to understand. And I don't know if you remember, but each one of us has 2 primary needs that are constants across the lifespan. And those needs are a sense of worth, which our brains assess as, do I matter to those to whom I should matter? Am I valued by those that I'm supposed to be valued by? And the second one is a sense of love and belonging, which our brains assess as, am I safe? Am I emotionally safe with those that I should be emotionally safe with? When those needs are not met, our brains will do something to try to meet those needs. And when we feel misunderstood, our brains will dig their heels in and sit there like a stubborn mule until we feel understood. And when we feel understood, it is like a breath of psychological air. And I see this every day in my office. I can see a couple, and it doesn't matter whether it's a parent, child, or partners or whatever. They will be sitting there desperately trying to prove their point or to be understood. And in the very moment, sometimes in the very second that they feel understood, you know what happens? Suddenly they are interested in the point of view of the other person. When somebody feels valued and validated and understood, it frees up their cognitive space to be able to learn, to be able to care about what's going on. And so if you're not tending, if your team, I won't even say you, if your team is not tending to those variables and helping people move past those obstacles, it will dramatically inhibit their ability to succeed.
Dr. Slade, can you clarify for me? When you said our brain, are you talking about OUR, our
No,
brains?
sorry, the R brain. Sorry. Oh, well, I said both actually.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks. So everyone's brain has those two needs. And the R brain can sometimes, and the E brain can sometimes feel like the emotional side of things, the feeling side of things, just gets in the way of their ability to succeed. Good clarification, Dave. Thanks. And I want to plant a little seed here for the future. I've developed an entire method on how to help people work through these challenging moments so that they do feel valued and seen. It's called CPR, which is intended to, because that's what it does, is it rescues our relationships and our interactions. And so down the road, you'll be able to receive more information on specifically how a skill set to be able to help people have that psychological air. Okay, let's look at the R skills. Talking to X number of new people a day, communicating the message in the scripts, initiating the next step, creating movement versus waiting, moving past concerns. Now, if you remember on the C one, I had helping resolve concerns. R's are really good at helping people move past concerns. Asking for referrals, being okay with no, rejection, talking about the business, talking about money, asking leading questions, staying focused on keeping it simple. The R brain is masterful at sifting through noise to zero in on the most imperative things. They can work through all the noise and identify the top few things that are the most important things. The main thing. Three-way calls. They're really good at inviting and creating those, and they're also really good at being the expert on three-way calls. Simplifying the step-by-step process. Questions, comments on the R skills. Okay, E's. Talking to X number of people, new people a day, sharing the message in scripts, educating on the benefits, follow up. This is so the R will blow through large numbers of people, collecting as they go. The E will cast a wider net typically, and with their follow-up and their more of their detail orientation will gather more people as they move along. Website training, working through and resolving concerns, presenting, training, creating and leading processes, talking about the business and money, recognition, three-way calls, especially as the expert. If an E really gets into something, they want to understand it well. They want to become an expert on it. They want to understand the whys of things. And then sharing that step-by-step process is exactly how the E brain works. Details. You want to
Jojo made Jojo made a really good comment while people are screenshotting this. She said that she has thought throughout the past 10 years or so equated the C and O skills and qualities to be inherently female and E and R to be male. And I have been trying to get into my feminine side, quote unquote. And with what you've just talked about, that's not it at all, she said.
Absolutely not. Yeah, really good point, Jojo. These are temperament. Now, gender also affects us, right? A C man is different than a C woman. And an R woman is different than an R man. But you Jojo, and your temperament, this is where your strengths are going to be. And it's not a matter of tapping into the CO anymore. I mean, that's temperament, and it's not, you're going to be swimming upstream if you're trying to be something that you're not. It does, and it goes the other way, right? It probably more frequently goes the other way with C's and O's trying to thinking they need to be R's and E's in order to be successful. But your point is really good, that there are a lot of, and I don't know how much to go into this, but there are a lot of R and E women who feel like they are not feminine enough. And as a society, we tend to associate these skill sets, these temperaments, with men, and C's and O's more with women, and that does a disservice to both, depending
Jojo,
on who you are.
I made you a co-host, Jojo, if you just wanted to add anything or clarify or get anything more that may be needed out of that you posted. Jojo is an incredible leader in the company, so I want to honor her with that opportunity.
Good morning. No, it was just the thought of, those are all the pieces that I strive to bring into what I do. And so am I pushing myself to be something that I'm not, when I'm pushing back to be OC and when I'm not in the moment, when I'm not, I'm always trying to be in the moment, and I'm always somewhere else. That's
Right.
It becomes annoying. It's like I'm not in the moment.
Right. And you don't need to be. Because you're really good at not being in the moment and bringing, so yeah, it's such a good point, that, and it happens. Most of us spend most of our lives not really understanding our temperament, and we're bombarded with messages from all sides about what it takes and what we ought to be and what we should be, and it really is a disservice and keeps us from really finding our groove and excelling. Because when you do the things that you're naturally good at, it's like a hot knife through butter. I mean, it just works well. And can you cut through butter with a frozen stick of butter with a knife? Yeah, you can, but it's a lot harder than cutting through a stick of butter with a hot knife, right?
There's something that Katya said here too that I think is worth recognizing, just if you want to speak to it or not. But she's recognizing too in other people these things that you're exposing or making her aware of, which I think instills empathy into the individual, who could now see why other people operate the way they do and maybe not be so offended or hurt or judgmental or
Frustrated. Yeah, absolutely, Katya. That's a great point, because it is. It's, if you don't understand why somebody's doing something and they keep doing the same thing, and you're like, well, this is what you ought to be doing, and they keep doing it a different way, it can be really frustrating if you don't understand why they're doing those things. And you can needlessly create an environment where you're cutting cross grain. And by understanding that, then you can really empower people to be able to be the best thems. That's got to be in correct English. The best versions of themselves that they can be.
And that might be a big thing for, like, some temperaments might take it personally and they may beat themselves up, or they just may be pissed off at the person that's acting that way. And so a lot of people, I think, and maybe you can, if this is true, Some temperaments will be paralyzed by that and they end up becoming a casualty just because they're reading erroneously the way other people are behaving. And when they start to see it
Absolutely.
with the light of truth that it is, then they could unstick themselves. I think that's a big one in this industry.
Huge. And that's going to happen. So it's going to particularly happen with C's and O's, and then with E's. And again, it goes back. That's a maybe a better way of saying, of talking about what I was talking about with that psychological error. It when you don't feel like what you are, who you are, is valued, a C isn't going to fight for that. They'll disappear. Again, it goes back to how we respond to resistance. A C will try, but if they continue to feel like they're not wanted, what they bring to the table isn't wanted, they will be a casualty, and they'll disappear. An O, if an O doesn't feel valued and doesn't, and if it's not enjoyable, they'll go find a place that is. And where you'll get that with an E is if an E doesn't feel like they're doing it right. If they constantly get the message that they're doing it the wrong way, and they're having a hard time understanding where that stuckness is, because if an E doesn't feel like it can do something right, it will sit at that crossroads of movement until they feel like they can. And so the team can go on down the road, and the E can be sitting back there at the crossroads, waiting for the ability or the resources to be able to do it the right way. And so you can end up with lots of unnecessary loss and casualties along the way because of this process. Does that make sense?
Totally, totally, and it might be something new for people to start considering. But now, naming it to tame it, I could look back. Hindsight's 2020, but it's like even better than 2020 when you start to learn this stuff.
Yeah, because you don't have to keep replicating. And there again, that's your good E-brain, Dave, being able to look back and see those moments, and then you can change it and do differently the next time. Okay, what gets in the way of success? This is actually a really good picture for what the R is really good at. Where would the R be focused in that picture?
At the target.
At the target. Yep. And all of those obstacles between the target and them would not even be in focus. And the R is really great at breaking through those things, where other temperament types would have a hard time with that. We could go on, but we'll get into these things. So let's talk about dealing with challenges. When you deal with challenges with the unhealthy aspects of your core, it doesn't work very well. It's like trying to pound a square peg into a round hole. It just doesn't work. When you deal with the challenges as a healthy you, we'll bring this picture back. It aligns, and you get in rhythm with who you are, and things will, they're not going to be easy, right? Having a family, having a healthy relationship, having a productive business is not easy. But when you are in sync with who you are and how your brain naturally works, it will feel much more like this. Oops. Than like this. I want to go through a few of the processes that happen with each type, just to help you understand it a little bit better. And this is how so C's are very sensitive. It's if you are a C, or if you're in a relationship with a C, you know this. And this is how this variable works. Their sensitivity, natural sensitivity to the emotional climate, leads them to prioritize feelings. It leads them to be easily hurt, and it leads them to be sensitive to other people. Some of those things are really great. Some of them are a little challenging, right? Then their willingness, their natural inclination to prioritize feelings and to be easily hurt lead to comfort, this desire to create comfort to avoid discomfort. Their sensitivity to others and their propensity to be easily hurt also leads them to the strong desire to be seen and understood. And when that's going well, it leads to this successful and intense motivator to feel connected. Does that make sense? And any one of these, if you just focus on the easily hurt part of the sensitivity, then it can start going down an unhealthy road, right? And you can be avoiding discomfort rather than creating comfort. And you can be sitting in the corner feeling invisible instead of being seen and understood. When you tap into these things in healthy ways, it works really well.
So if you guys can get that, like if you're relating to that and you can see how that's operating in your life now, kind of looking back, type a 1 into the chat box. And if it makes sense to you, if not, we'll revisit it later, but we just want to get that feedback. Yeah, hopefully as you're looking back on some of the memories in your past now, you could see how this is applicable in a way that was blindsiding you before. It's kind of like you knew it, right? When you hear truth, it's like, oh, I knew that, but I didn't because I wasn't operating like that. And so that's why we want to make sure that you're getting those ahas and those takeaways that will make the future choices better or different.
Yeah.
Or at least more understood.
Right. This is the other graphic that I wanted to show you about how time works for the C brain. When something happens that unsettles the C brain, they step out of time. They push pause. Their brain pushes pause, and they will process and ruminate here cyclically until whatever they're unsettled about feels settled. And time has moved on, right? Because time doesn't stop, but the C brain steps out of time and sits and processes on this until it feels settled, and then they plug back in. And so that puts the C into the past a little bit because everybody else has moved on, and then they're kind of playing catch up. But which is partly why once something gets settled, even if it's in an unhealthy way or an undesirable way, the C doesn't want it to get ruffled again. They just want it to stay, let sleeping dogs lie. They don't want to deal with the emotional unsettlement. They just want it to be able to stay the same. Again, I hope you see how this process works. If you have any questions, let me know. Let's look at some of the processes of the C. Or the O, sorry. O's can be passive aggressively stubborn. And these are the reasons why. They're living in the present. They're low tolerance for negative emotion. Their strong desire to avoid conflict, right? So they don't want to directly address things. They certainly don't want the hassle of a big conflict or a fight. Their spontaneity and ability to shift gears really quickly, and their fear of missing out all combine to lead to this passive aggressive stubbornness. And so, and the strong desire, if you're an O, you'll recognize this, to just pay the price later. I'll worry about that later. From a kid dealing with hiding his or her report card so their parent doesn't see it, to facing your boss the next time you come in late or you come to work because you didn't come in the day before, or whatever else it might be. This is a really predictable dynamic that goes on inside of the O. And these are in the book. These diagrams are in the book and elaborated on, but I wanted to pull them out and for you to have them big as well. Another predictable aspect that leads to O's procrastinating and avoiding is, again, They're low tolerance for negative emotion and conflict. And so if something's unpleasant in the moment, they don't want to deal with it. And that low tolerance for negative emotion and conflict leads to their low tolerance for hassle, because they don't want to deal with something negative or unpleasant. Hassle is that. And then, yeah.
So like recruiting and getting rejected, how it is that, like, that would be a huge challenge for an O to keep doing that?
Yes, yes, and I put some things in here later, but one of the
Okay.
things, so you want to look for like protective factors, right? Because you can't, what you can't do is to change your brain's propensity for these things. But just the simple in that one, Dave, if an O is recruiting with someone, if there's a person they enjoy spending time with, it will totally help to ameliorate some of this process and the sting of rejection, because they're having a good time with their buddy. And so that's an easy kind of thing that you can do to help kind of compensate for some of this.
If you've been to UIA and you know David Wood and his process with no, like, it's definitely an O approach to dealing with rejection. That dancing when you hear no is an O approach, and he's definitely an O. You can, like, if you've been to UAA, you'll be able to see that.
I don't
And
know
if
what
I
you're
ask
talking
a
about,
question, if you're going to answer it later, just let me know
Having
so
fun.
we don't hold it
Okay.
up. Because I
Okay.
think there's some really important points that we could really make some connections with to maybe sink it in a little bit deeper. But if you're going to get to them, then just let me know.
Well, but
when
yeah,
David when David did that, I thought, I don't need to dance, just suck it up. It's a no, right? Because I'm an R. Okay.
right. Yeah. Why are you getting your feelings hurt, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's a really good reaction. Thank you. FOMO is one of the biggest motivators for the O brain, that leads to avoidance and procrastination. They will put off a lot of things to not miss out on something. And then they're living in the present, right? So what's going on right now is paramount for the O brain, which leads to the difficulty planning, which then leads to the avoidance and the procrastination.
Are they motivated by the goal? Like, if they can keep that goal fresh in their mind, would that motivate them, or no?
No, not necessarily. O's aren't really motivated by much in the future. They will be much more motivated by an enjoyable process right now.
Okay, that's huge to know for leaders.
Yeah, it is. And where in time you live is huge. And that future focus of, oh, if I do all this stuff for 3 years, I'm going to be able to, have the yacht that I want or whatever. Because they live in the present, and because of all of these other things, that's not going, going the wrong way. That's not going to win the day today, like it would for an R and even for an E. If it is imperative for you O's and for the O's on your team to enjoy the day in, day out process.
Mhm. And if you remember what success is to an O, and having an enjoyable time with people, that can be really, there were other things on the list, but that can really help you work better with your O's.
So that could really butt heads if I'm like, but look at the comp plan, it's just 2, and then they tell 2 and they tell 2, which is a drawn out process that check out. We're going to be butting heads.
Right. Well, they won't butt heads. They'll just avoid.
Yeah.
They're not going to, they're not going to be inspired. But if you're doing that same thing with an R, it would totally inspire them. And we get into that. We do get into that in a little bit here too. On the good side of things, these same variables lead to O's getting over things quickly because of their low tolerance for negative and emotion and conflict. They live in the present, and their drive for positive emotion. They do not stay sitting in negative emotion for very long. And if an O feels like They're going to be stuck in negative emotion. I think I shared the first day that we lost a son almost 16 years ago now to a horrible accident. And I was 34 at the time, and that it was so hard. That aspect was one of the things that was most crippling to me at the time. I was hurting so badly and in so much pain, and I was only 34 years old, and I thought, I cannot feel this way for the rest of my life. The thought of being in that despair and that pain for the next 40 years of my life or whatever was so overwhelming for my old brain. And so O's are typically really good at seeing the silver lining and being optimistic about things. And when they're struggling, if you can help them see and experience, not 30 years from now, but how we can feel better today, it will really get them back on track. These are the variables of why sometimes people can feel run over by an R. Again, it's that target. That's probably a better graphic than this is, but the focus on where they're going in the future, that's what they're focused on, that, and everything between here and there is just noise. Their emotional intensity, right? They feel things really powerfully, and their drive for resolution, their unwillingness, not unwillingness. It's really difficult for something to be on the R radar and them not be able to get it resolved. Those things combine to other people sometimes feeling run over when they're in relationships with the R. Want to talk about this E process. This is how the E brain processes things. They analyze, they plan, then they prepare based on the plan, and then they practice. Repeat. They analyze, they plan for the next time. So they analyze what has happened. They plan for the next time. They prepare for the next time, and then they practice it. And then they analyze again. That is the eternal process, the eternal natural process of how the E-brain does things. Another very predictable aspect of the E is that E's only allow a portion of what they feel to be seen. If this is the range of feelings, only these tops and bottoms are what normally get out. And all of this stuff going on inside, and he typically keeps inside. They will share what they're feeling with somebody if there's a very high level of trust, and if that person asks to be let in. But the E brain won't naturally do that. And so a lot of times when you're in a relationship with an E, you're wondering what's going on inside. You're wondering how they're feeling about something, because they can seem very stoic and internal, because they're very high on internal processing. Does that make sense? Okay. And that brings us to this. When you look at internal and external processing, this is how the types look here. The C is very much like a glacier, right? Where there's a lot going on under the surface, but they also need that external processing and connecting. An O, almost all of an O's processing is external, with a little bit of internal processing. For the R, almost everything, what you see is what you get with an R. You hardly ever have to wonder what's going on with an R, because they're willing to say it, they're willing to share it. They one of the greatest benefits of being in a relationship with an R. And an E, almost everything is internal. And if you'll remember, when we talked about one of the things that's different about a C from an E is when an E gets disorganized emotionally, they go inside, they get reorganized, and for them, that's it. They're good. They don't have this need to share, and they won't unless so they can, you can like be in a fight, the E can withdraw and they'll get reorganized and then just kind of move on, and it can leave the other person wondering, you know, what's going on. And so if you're an E, or if you're in a relationship with an E, you have to remind yourself or them that hey, I can't read your mind and I need to be let in, because that won't occur naturally to the E like it will for the C. The C will want to share once they get organized emotionally.
Yeah,
The
then I'm
challenge.
there.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. One of the things that I think is important about this is a couple of things. One is like a lot of times it can be seen as being unhealthy to think a lot. Or not, maybe not unhealthy, but when you're in personal development world, and a lot of times in isogenics, you know, people are like, stop overthinking, stop thinking so much, just do it. And I think this is really important because C's and E's, like telling a C and an E to stop thinking is like telling us to stop breathing, you know?
Right.
And then the other thing that I think is really important is that, and this has just been kind of a new aha for me, is that all of the processing that I do internally so that I can make sure I say things in the way I mean them. I don't always do it well, but trying to say things in a way that I'm going to be understood and that I mean what I say doesn't happen for the R or the O very much. All of the processing is done externally, like out of their mouth. And so all of the messiness that I have inside as I'm trying to figure something out, I don't know if messiness is the right word, but that's part of why I feel like O's and well, R's can sound insensitive sometimes to a C, because I think I've already, you know, if I said it, I meant it. But if the R says it, they're still processing. And so they don't mean a lot of what they say in the beginning, you know, and so having to just understanding that their processing is happening in front of us all. Like it's kind of like they have no privacy almost with their thoughts, because it's like outside, if that makes sense. It was just a big aha for me being you know, surrounded by a lot of R's in my life, to realize that
Totally.
they always mean what they say and they're not trying to hurt other people's feelings when they're processing.
Well, and two comments on that. One, that's exactly right. It's if you as a C or an E can just stop and think about all the processing that goes on inside of you before anything gets out, that's happening externally for O's and R's. And and this is the other thing that's really important to remember. It's not that they don't mean what they're saying. It's that it's what they mean right now. But as other data comes up, they'll feel differently. You know, they may feel differently tomorrow or next week or next year, but it's what they feel in the moment. And for a C or an E, doesn't take a stand, doesn't like say, this is what I think or feel, without it like being kind of set in stone a little bit. It's the cement is already kind of drying for a C or an E, and for an O or an R, it's like it's wet cement all the time. This is what I'm feeling right now. And later I might be thinking about something else and feel differently.
Yeah, and you might never know, at least in my words, how I feel in the moment, because I'm not going to tell you until after I figure. You might feel it in my emotional state, but I'm not going to tell you very often how I feel
until you get it settled. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's past. So yeah.
So
Dave,
yeah, just real quick here. And if we're running short on time, just let me know, because I'd rather you get your information out.
Okay.
The E, and I don't know if it's an R part of me, but the E is internalizing and resolving it for themselves and not thinking about other people, where the C wants everybody to be comfortable and the E's like, no, I'm good, you know, but the C and to get to their comfort place, but an E already got ER or.
You cut out for part of that for me. I don't know if that
What's
was
that?
you or me. I missed some of what you said.
Yeah, it cut
So
out
the-
for me.
Oh, okay. So the E, when they're internalizing, they get to that place where they're now good with it.
So, yeah,
And the other person wants to talk about it. It's like, oh, no, I'm good. Because it's kind of a pain. It's like a nuisance to have to bring it all up because I'm good now.
right.
Not thinking
Yeah,
about the other person isn't good, right?
exactly.
Where C will internalize because they want everybody to be good and work it
Yes.
out for everybody. And he just kind of moves on and leaves other people behind. And so that helps me in my relationships to say,
Totally.
okay, I need to check in and make sure they're good with it. If not, but that's really annoying. I don't know if that's the E or the R or both.
It's probably both because and you I always have a hard time adequately saying this because it can sound wrong, but the E is like an island unto him or herself. It's important. So much of what motivates the E is internal, and they're really not like recognition isn't going to really float the boat for an E very much. It's internal stuff that's being okay internally, being congruent with their values, doing it the right way. These are very internally motivated, and so understanding that and remembering the difference and what it takes to have a healthy relationship versus to maybe be healthy internally is a really important thing for the E because it can feel really lonely if you're in a relationship with an E that doesn't let you in. And so that's a really, and it is frustrating because once it's settled, and especially with your R-ness wanting to move on, drudging back up something that you're past can feel like pulling your toenails off
Yeah, exactly. So us E's need to get in the habit of saying, hey, are you settled or are you unsettled? Do we need to talk about
right.
it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about my side of this? Because you're not gonna naturally need that. Really, really good point, both of you. Time. So unalterable where we live in time. The E naturally lives in the past. Why? Because of how their brain works. They look at what has happened so that they can plan for what is going to happen. The C gets pulled into the past a little bit because when they get unsettled, they step out of time. Time doesn't stop, it moves on. So it pulls them into the past a little bit. O's live in the present. It filters almost everything that the O does. Why they have a difficult time planning, why they procrastinate, why they avoid, why they're so spontaneous and game to do. And the R lives in the future. It's where the present almost never catches up to the R, because by the time the present catches up to where their brain is, they're on to what's next. So this is huge when you're interacting with anybody. And if you go ahead, Carrie.
Thing that I feel is important to just mention, but then there's also a comment I think earlier that pertains to this is another thing from the stage. A lot you'll hear, get out of the past. You have to be in the present, and if you're not, your brain's wrong. And there are healthy benefits of letting yourself be in the present and mindfulness and things like that. But somebody whose brain is in the past or in the future isn't wrong or broken. I think it's important to point that out. And then the comment was this, and I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on it, but I just wanted to bring it up to hear what you have to say. That practicing the power of now while having a vision for the future is a necessary and practiced skill for the R temperament, but it's absolutely possible. Various forms of meditation can help with that. That was
yes, and skills, processes, and partnerships, right?
Yeah.
And you can practice skills. and there's a lot of benefit. And you're not going to be as good at it as an E or a C would be naturally. The E or C brain naturally does that. The O and R brain struggle with those kinds of things. E's and C's, again, it goes back to that internal processing. E's and C's naturally do that, and they're going to get more value out of that even. And that's actually such a good point with the self-help literature and different things, because there is tremendous benefit for that. But for an O or an R, there are other ways to get those same kinds of benefits. Journaling is the same thing. Journaling is a great way to process, and it's really good for your brain. And it's a tool that's going to be easier used for certain temperaments than others. And where you get in trouble is saying that this is the thing that you have to do in order to be healthy. This is the thing that you have to do in order to be successful, because that's going to be very temperamentally based.
Nana has a really good point here, and in recognizing it may not be our core motivation, right? That we're going to always be working against that if it's not. But she says, I'm already thinking about my next enrollment instead of taking care of the current customers. And she's an OR, which makes total sense looking at this graph, right? And
total sense.
Half the battle in that is knowing that. So now she can start to not be blindsided by it, because that's a big thing where we call it the salesman failure syndrome. You're enrolling people, not sponsoring them. Sponsoring, you're taking responsibility for their success. But an OR isn't motivated by that, right? Naturally.
Right. And so ideally, if I'm you, or if you're on my team, I let you run with enrollment, and I have people who are really good at nurturing and sponsoring. And I put you in this role of, man, you go and acquire, and I do have some slides on that later. And then have people that are really good at the nurturing, and you'll be able to cover the bases really well.
I'm getting chills everywhere, because we recognize that as leaders just through trial and error and experience, right? But an OR who's coming in, they may get frustrated because they're not building that foundation that duplicates. And since they don't see what they're doing to themselves, because as leaders, we love ORs, like keep bringing them in and introduce them to us. If they don't introduce them to us, it's a problem.
Right.
But, so there's this whole dynamic that's like network marketing PhD level right here, and 101, because this happens all the time. And this is where an OR, if they can now recognize that, they need to reach out and say, hey, I have a hard time following up. Can we partner up and finding somebody on their team that's connected that will help them do that?
Totally.
Where we as leaders, like I said, we already do that. Like we take advantage of our O and R's in a good way. Like it's a win-win.
Right. Yep. But if the message is you've got to do it all by yourself, you're not going to be as successful as being able to take advantage of people's natural strengths.
Good stuff.
The good by yourself, but not, or no, you're in business for yourself, but not by yourself is such a good thing to remember for all of us, I think.
Yeah. Quality versus speed. This is a little touchy sometimes for people, but nonetheless, it's pretty predictable. In general, on these two variables, this is where people will land. C's will do pretty good quality slowly, and E's will do really good quality slowly. R's will do less good quality fast, and O's will be kind of somewhere in the middle there normally. Not super fast necessarily, and not overly concerned about the details of quality. Again, this isn't broken. There's nothing wrong with this. It's the way our brains naturally work. What's wrong?
I feel like the be closer to the quality line, I guess, depending on what it is though, right?
Yeah, it doesn't motivate. And again, it's not that R's can't do good work or that O's can't do good work. This is just, it's not what motivates, right? It's not what drives them. What drives the R is getting stuff done. What drives the O isn't getting a lot done or doing the details of it's what could be, and it's enjoying life and enjoying relationships. And so it's just what drives us, and recognizing that you don't have to be up here in this high quality, high speed in order to be successful.
This is such an incredible chart. This is like at a glance, these things that you're showing. If you guys are really getting a lot out of this, like you thought, like we've already got it now, we're good, but you just keep adding more and more. If you guys are really seeing that clarity in how you could work with your teams, put a 2 in the chat box. And man, I'm loving this, Dr. Slade. I'm sure a lot of other people are as well.
Intensity versus speed. Again, here. So you've got intensity, and you notice what happens with the C when you change that variable from quality to intensity. E's are intense and deliberate and not very fast. R's are intense and fast. C's and O's are typically neither intense or fast. And again, not broken, right? Because what they do bring is really important. But if you're trying to run and keep up with an intense R, you're going to feel like you're drinking out of a fire hydrant trying to keep up with them. And if you're an R and you're trying to sit in the emotional comfort of a C, you're going to feel like you're wasting your time. If you don't understand this.
I was just say, as a metaphor, that's part of why Dave and I's system at Disneyland works really well. I just take up the back and make sure everybody's good, and Dave gets ahead and gets in line real quick.
Yeah, that's teamwork. Okay, so what does success look like again? Skills, a learn and practice tool or technique. This is just an overview or review from last week. Processes, a systematic series of actions directed to some end. And partnerships, assessing the strengths of other people to help you do things that don't come naturally to you. And here's a it can be difficult, especially for an E, to think that they shouldn't be able to do everything well themselves. Because that's the E strength, right? The E strength is researching and finding out the best way, and then having a lot of confidence in the conclusions that they draw. And so it can be difficult for the E to think, to give themselves permission to not be the expert on everything and to defer to other people's strengths, because it goes contrary to how the E brain works. Creating effective partnerships. Do the things that only I can do, or that I am going to do best. Utilize the core strengths of your team members. Right? Just teamwork makes the dream work. Motivating C's. These are things to motivate a C. Take time and show interest. Really listen to what they feel and think. One-on-one time, super important. Ask questions and listen to the answers. Don't ask questions and look at your phone. Don't ask questions and think about what's going on tomorrow. Sensitivity and availability. Non-stimulating, safe place to feel seen and heard. Time and space to recharge in a non-stimulating environment. They need time to defrag. Time and space to connect their thoughts, and willingness to revisit a conversation. Remember, it's super imperative. The C brain will sit and ruminate on something until it feels settled. You need to be willing to circle back to conversations. They often need to revisit a subject many times. Partnership and practice in learning effective conflict resolution skills. Again, the CPR that you'll have the opportunity to learn about later. To be invited and feel included. They want to be seen. And if you proactively invite them in, let them know that you want them to be there, it's like honey to the C brain. Subtle acknowledgement that they are being seen in a group. They don't want to be shouted about, but just eye contact, physical touch, like holding hands, etc. They want to know that they're still on your radar. Overt expression that what they bring is valuable. Predictability. You want to get, whoops, let me go back. I don't know if you want to get a picture of that or see that or whatever.
That subtle acknowledgement piece in a team setting might look less like, hey, let's all like give a shout out to that person in the back of the room, you know, blah, blah, blah. And more of a after it's over or sometime in the middle or even before, like noticing they're there, going over to them personally and telling them you're glad to see them. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah. A note, a text, a handwritten letter in the mail, all those kinds of things will really help the C's on your team feel valued.
All that and a bag of chips right there, that handwritten letter.
And again, if you're an R, you don't have to do that, but have somebody on your team who does. Right? Or that reminds you to do that, or that helps you do that. Motivating O's. And these are not, I should ask you guys, I'm giving you the answers, but these are not exhaustive lists. These are just examples to get your brains moving. Need to be willing to prioritize and put in the effort to make things fun. Let them present about the great opportunity and to paint the picture, and then be able to get out of the way for the details. Again, O's are really good at motivating and getting people excited about things. O's think everything is good. And so let them talk about the goodness of it and the hype of it and the how great it's going to be. But then if the O still has to then go do all of the details, it's going to leave things looking like it was smoke and mirrors. And so let the O run with that part of it. Need to feel like you really like them and that you're interested in them. Attention and recognition, super important for motivating O's. They need variety. One system, one way of doing things becomes boring and a hassle. O's like change. Brainstorming, include the O's in your brainstorming. Hey, we've got this thing we're thinking about. What do you think? The O brain is really good at that. Do the work together. There's probably no single thing that you could do more to help your O's be successful than doing the work with them. O's really enjoy working together.
Would an O like bringing treats to an event?
No, but they would like eating the treats that somebody else brought.
Mm. What temperament would bring the treats? Bacon.
C's are really good at thinking about what makes something comfortable for other people.
Yeah, just come to my office. I'll give you a treat. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
An E, I think an E would do that too.
Absolutely. That's the right way, right? This is how you do it. This is how you do a meeting. This is how you help people feel like they're part of things. Yeah.
Yeah. JoJo's amazing with that E and then secondary C-ness. She's amazing at stuff.
That's a home run right there. Yeah. So the E's and C's great at that kind of a thing. Details are not easy for R's or O's. Okay, motivating R's. We have quite a few R's, don't we, Dave?
I seen a lot of R's. I don't know the percentages,
Yeah.
but there's
So I want you to write what you think motivates R's. If you're trying to motivate other people, type in the chat what you think does that. Goals and accomplishments, the big picture. Money, hurry up, being on time. Greater good, getting it done. Challenge or competition. Trips. excitement. Let's get this done and then go do something. Get it done. Bonuses for reaching a goal. Yes. Rank advancement, recognition. You guys are hitting it right on. Recognition, fun. Yeah, competitions. Control over their success in getting things done. Super frustrating for an R to feel like there's a bunch of garbage in between them and their ability to get to be successful. Again, let the R's run and clean up after them. Support after them. Give people the support after, but let them go and gather. Getting the ball rolling. Sprints, little competitions. Hey, how many people can we contact this weekend? Little, X number of things in a weekend, in a day, in a week, in a month. Need others to take what they say with a grain of salt. Also important, it's really hard for an R to feel like they've got to bridle their tongue all the time. And so understand that that an R is going to pop off and that it doesn't mean they hate you. It doesn't mean that they don't want you on their team. It's just what comes in their brain comes out their mouth. They need others to be willing to communicate what's going on inside of them. They're not going to slow down to think about that naturally. So you've got to let them know what's going on if you want them to know what's going on. Redirection when their focus is on something other than where they want to go. So one of the most predictable aspects, of the R brain is that whatever's on the screen takes up the whole screen. And so if an R isn't managing what gets on their screen, then they can be just being led around by their brain, intensely focusing on whatever gets on the radar. And so helping them see what's on the radar, control what's on the radar. If they get consumed with worry, they get consumed with frustration, it will take up the whole screen and it will feel daunting and overwhelming. That makes sense?
Yeah. Malcolm, they're probably tapping or twitching their foot right now.
That's probably true. Motivating E. Do you want to type in what motivates an E, or do you want me just to tell you? Type in what you think motivates E's, please. Charts.
Chart.
I like that. That's totally true.
Mhm.
Being right.
That visual image of what a
Patient.
team looks like probably is motivating for the E, huh?
Yep. Scripts, fixing something. Oh, you guys are nailing it. So exciting to get it. Outcome. Making things better. Yes. Results. Perfecting something, not even broken. Yeah. Oh, that's such a good thing. Yeah. Doesn't even have to be broken. It's just making something better. Trainings. Oh, E's love trainings. Focus, fairness. Yeah. You want to really demotivate an E? Be unfair. Change the rules on an E. Drive them crazy. Which ties right into this. They need to feel like they can trust you. They need to believe in the product, research, data. You will attract E's through science. Need to own the process as their own. They've got to think through it. They've got to recognize that it's an effective process. They're not going to just take somebody's word that this is the best way to do it. They're going to have to understand why and how it's the best way. They need to feel like others are willing to invest time to listen to them. Remember, all the E's processing is internal. You ask any a question, I said this a couple of weeks ago, you ask any a question and you can watch their wheels turning as they try to decide whether or not they're going to answer your question. Because if they are going to answer it, they're going to take you by the hand and they're going to paint the picture for you of how they landed on the correct solution. And they're not going to waste their time if you're not really interested in that. One-on-one interactions, because that's, again, an E isn't going to cast their pearls. They're going to go deep. They need things to make logical sense. They've got to understand the process. E's do great at being the expert and the authority on something. I did a presentation on core last night, and the resident E in the room was talking. So somebody asked, well, do E's have a hard time saying you're sorry? They're saying they're sorry. And he said, no, I would much rather recognize that I've done something wrong and apologize for it before somebody can point out that I did something wrong. They want to be the one to be able to say that. Okay. Make sense? Motivating E's.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just did this as I was last night. I was just kind of, this is just a way that this can look. An R and O can do the introduction. Great at going and gathering. The R will be the engine. The O will be the excitement. R gets it going. O generates excitement. C welcomes to the team, listens to concerns, validates feelings, validates the scariness, the hardness, how uncomfortable it is to go and talk to somebody about network marketing, helps them feel seen and a part of things. The O encourages, also welcomes to the team, keeps positive energy flowing, hypes people up. E offers the science, the quality of the products, step-by-step process to success. This is how you do it. The R keeps it simple. You don't have to, this doesn't have to be a big complicated thing. Stay focused on these imperative things. Do these things each day, each week, each month. You'll be successful. E's really good at holding accountability, charts, tracking progress, KPIs, key progress indicators, right?
Leader in
That's
action.
just leader. Yes. That's just an example that I wanted to throw out there of how you can construct the strengths of people to really capitalize on everyone to be successful in a team.
Awesome.
And it doesn't matter whether it's network marketing, whether it's family, whether it's, I mean, these things apply to any organization, a church, whatever. These are our natural strengths and what we're naturally good at. Thoughts, questions?
I have a thought, true to my slow C settling sometimes in putting together slides yesterday, a thought that just landed of what I wanted to maybe end with. And so it's going to catch you off guard, but since that's how you do that, I'm not worried about it. You always say, and I know it best for the C's. Oh, I'm talking to my phone, but I'm looking at my computer. I'll move over here. That the difference between a healthy C and an unhealthy C is that a healthy C will create comfort and an unhealthy C will avoid discomfort. And where we're talking about how our unhealthiness gets in the way of our success, is there something that's, I know that's not all inclusive and I know there's so many other points, but is there something that for the other temperaments that you say in that same way, like a healthy O will and an unhealthy O will? Does that make sense of what I'm asking?
C's are the only ones that get unhealthy. Sorry.
In a simple way.
No, yeah, there are those things about everything, right? So avoidance is really big for both O's and E's. An unhealthy O will procrastinate and avoid. Which lets things build up. Why? Because of that chart that we saw. They don't want to deal with anything fun. O's just want people to be happy and to be happy with them all the time. And the reality is that relationships are messy and we hurt each other's feelings and we step on each other's toes. And in order to have a healthy relationship, you have to be able to work through things. And an unhealthy O has a really hard time doing that. An unhealthy O also will flake out on things. They'll make commitments, and if they get a better offer, then they'll bail. And so a healthy O will combat that. Will proactively create fun and connection. And with an E, a healthy E will move, will recognize that their propensity to want to wait until the perfect scenario, and will force themselves to start to move as they're building, rather than wanting to have everything built before they move. Where an unhealthy E will sit and be stuck, sometimes literally for years, waiting for the scenario where they finally feel like they've got the resources to be able to move. And for an R, an unhealthy R will just will bowl people over. There are internal things and external things, but an unhealthy R will not care that you're an obstacle between them and their goal. And it can become very much about them and where they're going. And a healthy R will recognize that they are better with people, that they need people in their lives, and that it's not just about that. So is that kind of what you're talking about, Carrie?
Yeah, exactly. Because there's a lot of times when, like since I am a C, I feel like I attract a lot of C's, and I'll hear a C say, well, they keep trying to get me to do something, but I'm not comfortable doing that. And so now I'm learning, as being a C, that I don't have to, because it's okay for me to be comfortable. And that's not really what it's all about. Like the healthy C will create comfort as they go along into the uncomfortable thing. And then that applies to, all different temperaments. I hear
Right.
a lot of E's, like you were saying, I can't move on this until it's perfect. And if an E wants to be successful in this business, they've got to move sometimes, and and remember that part of perfecting something is failing forward, I guess. I don't know. So yeah, that's exactly what I was looking for. Thank you.
And there are partnerships there, right? That's where the sweet spot
Yes.
with the partnership.
Yeah.
Or you get, and if you're an RE like Dave, then that partnership happens internally, and your R-ness won't allow your E-ness to be stuck for very long.
Yeah.
It will pull it forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And being careful at, in that same conversation, to not get the mindset of I have to teach myself how to be an R. It's how do I be a healthy me by leaning into the challenge instead of,
Strengths.
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And you
That's
can
right.
do that with your strengths.
Yeah.
Dave, what
Yeah.
were you going to say?
I think, did you get through all the information? Was that the last slide?
That was it.
Okay, great. I don't remember if it was the E or the R, but it has to make sense, right? It makes so much sense, more sense, as we're going deeper and deeper into this. And just a reminder to everybody, I think we've learned how to pretend to be some of these other things in life as a survival mechanism. But as we start to understand what our core motivations are, and if you can figure out how to frame up in your isogenics business what your core motivation behaviors and isogenics are with income producing activities. But when you start to recognize, I have been pretending here or there, or for whatever reasons, there's all different kinds of reasons why we might pretend. We might admire that quality, but we really have to tap into our true motivations. Once you can frame that up and you start to understand who you really are and how you can frame that up with your behaviors and your actions in isogenics, you're going to rock this business. And when you're rocking life, you just attract all the needful things that you need to accomplish the desires of your heart. And so just that reminder, finding what your core motivations are, not what you think other people think your core motivations should be, but finding yours. And look, there's a limitless amount of combinations that you could put together to frame up how you want to build your isogenics business. There's over 420 millionaires now. They all do it differently in some ways. They all do it in their unique way. And when you can find that, again, that core motivation and lead your business and your team through that core motivation, you'll attract the other necessary things that you need. That's how, I mean, God's designed us to work together like this. And so when you're in that high vibration of life, you'll just start to attract the things that you need. So anything you want to
Can I say one
add
more
to
thing
that,
about
Dr.
that,
Slade?
Dave? Yeah, a big part of this is how, right? So you've got to talk to people to build a business, right? You've got to you've got to resolve conflict to have a healthy relationship. You've got to exercise, you've got to eat well, you've got to sleep well in order to have a healthy brain. I mean, that doesn't matter who you are. There are things that have to happen if you're going to be successful. But how you do that can be very different. How you exercise can be very different as a C, an O, an R, or an E. You've got to exercise, but how you do that can totally be within your wheelhouse of how your brain works and what motivates you, and how you prepare healthy food, healthy meals. I was trying to say both of those at the same time. Do something that works. I do smoothies because I can drink like 5 servings in 2 minutes. Works really well for my old brain. I don't really care to have a big, beautiful meal that has lots of great presentation and pleases my palate. I don't want to be slowed down in my day. I want to be able to keep doing the things that I want to be doing, that I enjoy doing. So I just want you to see that if you try to plug into a different motivator, it will feel like nails on a chalkboard to you. It will not work for you. But if you plug into what motivates you and how to do it, you can be successful in almost anything. So
yeah, there is a challenge to that because we role model things, right? And that role modeling is going to come from the person, if they're successful, from their core motivations. So look for other leaders, Lynn Hagedorn. There's a lot of leaders out there to glean from who I'm sure cover all the spectrum of the different core temperaments and start to, anyway, I think that's enough said. We said it earlier, Carrie, with the workbook, just the housekeeping for people that might not have been on in the beginning.
I posted a workbook in the Facebook group earlier this week. I posted it before I had sent it to Dr. Slade, and he has some little revisions that he wants to do. So I'm going to remove that workbook and replace it with the updated version. So if it's not going to be big changes. If you've already printed it out, you'll just be able to write them in. But they're important changes in the wording and things. And so just be aware that that I posted, I'm going to be removing it and replacing it with something else. Mostly smaller little differences.
Yeah, little things.
Yeah.
Dr. Slade, what are we looking at? This is the 4th week. We talked about doing 6 weeks. Does it look like we're on track to finish up in 2 weeks?
I think so. I think we're on. Yeah, I think we're on a good. So next week I won't be here. I'll be out of town, and so we'll reconvene.
Next week, did you say? I'm sorry, I checked out.
Next week I'm not here.
So what we'll do, you guys, I'll check in on my normal Saturday and do a presentation and some business training next Saturday for those that have always checked into that. And anybody's welcome to come. It's a different ID number than this Zoom, but we'll do that next Saturday at this time.
Yep. And then we'll reconvene the week after that. So
okay. So about 2 more weeks, you're thinking?
Yep. I'm thinking 2 more weeks. We'll get through the stuff that we promised to deliver on, and then we'll go from there.
Okay. And as a pilot, you guys, we want to mastermind on this. Are you feeling the value? And do you see that this could be a huge value for Isogenics? If so, put a yes in there. But also, we would need help in helping Isogenics to be overwhelmed with the value that we're receiving. So reaching out to your reps. Everybody in Isogenics, their email is their first and last name with a dot. So Chris.nish chris.nish@isogenicscorp.net. Is it .net or .com? I think it's .com actually. I think .com. Isogenicscorp.com.
Chris
So
actually
there's
might be Christopher.
Christopher Nish, Christopher.Nish. If it was Kathy Coover, it'd be Kathy.Coover. If it was Joshua.plant@isogenicscorp.com. Somebody that would really, your reps would be the best to go to, and also like Mac Larson, mac.larson@isogenicscorp.com. And also Shelly, or what's our CEO's name? Shelly?
No,
Sharon Walsh.
Sharon.
Sorry, Sharon Walsh would be a good one as well to reach out to. And
Dave, would it be
Yeah.
a good idea for them to CC you or me on that as well, so that we can also collect them and present it as a big big picture overview, if that makes sense?
yeah,
I think it would be helpful for the core team, the Healthy and Happy team, also to see all of those.
That's a
One
really
criteria.
good example of what a C brings to the table right there too. That connectivity piece. So way
Put
to
in
be a healthy C.
put in your email, Carrie, in the chat, and they can copy
Okay.
that. Go
I
ahead.
would also say too, like, give us feedback, give me feedback. If there are things that I'm like touching on, but you don't, I'm not quite explaining well, or you would like more information on or whatever. Again, this is a pilot. So, give me feedback and I want to make sure that you're benefiting from it.
Yeah, I'll have Emma create a feedback form, and then we'll post that link in the group so that you can also do that.
That'd be
Yeah.
a good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would
Also,
have been good to do that for each week.
It would. So think backward. Go back and rewatch the videos, and then I'm just kidding. You can if you want, but you don't have to.
and also, if you would find value for your teammates, and again, other people in Isogenics, and I know Dr. Slade probably already has in mind, but I think it would be good as far as feedback. What would the value would you see as, and maybe that could be on that questionnaire, like I'd be willing to pay this much, just so that we could take all things into consideration. I know as groups get bigger, there could be a reduced price with huge groups. Isogenics did that with the Healthy Mind and Body, reduced it dramatically, but there were so many people enrolling that, and it was an endless supply of a funnel of people coming in as well, which was residual as well. So we're I'm interested in those things. I'm sure Dr. Slade, and we would go into like a level 2, a level 3, and really take some deeper dives on each of the core temperaments, and we would come up with all that. But is that kind of the bigger picture you're seeing, Dr. Slade? If you want to add anything to that or subtract anything?
No, we've already got the next couple of levels outlined. That, I mean, this just core is, just so you know, core is one of 7 healthy and happy principles, and each one is imperative in order to have a healthy life and healthy relationships. Core forms the foundation, and because, like I said, it's like our eyeballs that you can't take out. It influences everything we do. But this is one of 7 really research-based imperative things that are really transformational. So there's lots and lots of tools that we hope to be able to get into your hands.
I really like how you applied it to the different dynamics of the Isogenics business as well. That was really cool. Okay.
Good, okay. Thank you all. It's good to see you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Talk to you later.
Okay. Bye-bye, everyone.
Save the chat before.